Many, including us here at the CBC News, have chosen not to show those images. But we faced criticism. What went through our thinking? What went through
Well, we
your
start
thinking?
from the principle that we are a responsible news organization. Part of our job as Canada's national broadcaster is to promote tolerance and respect.
Religion and the double standards of the state broadcaster. I'm Brian Lilley with TheRebel.media. You know, it's just a week or so ago we were talking about the shooting, the terrorist attack in Garland, Texas, where a couple of jihadis got upset about a free speech event and decided to go and shoot people because they were having a Draw Muhammad cartoon event. Now, we've shown you the cartoons here on The Rebel. I've interviewed the cartoonist, Bosch Foston. We've talked about it extensively. But the guys behind me there, the state broadcaster, the guys that get the $1 billion a year, they decided not to show it. And you know what? It was just like when Charlie Hebdo happened. So that was just over a week ago. But back in January, when Charlie Hebdo, when that terrorist attack happened, when journalists were slaughtered, when writers, editorialists, cartoonists were slaughtered for daring to draw the Prophet of Islam, well, CBC, they had journalists lining up to tweet out photos of them holding up little signs that said, "Je suis Charlie." But they wouldn't show the photos, and that had lots of Canadians angry. We've just received a big batch of access to information request files that include examples of Canadians emailing in to say, hold on, you've got a double standard. You won't show the cartoons of Muhammad, but you're willing to insult my religion and those of others. Do you want me to sum up CBC's example for you? I'll get to some hard examples in a minute, but to sum it up, it would be, you don't know what you're talking about, we don't have double standards, and you just don't understand. Why don't you liberalize yourself a bit? That's kind of how it goes with CBC when other faiths complain. I want to read you an email from a guy named Nick McCabe-Locos. Now, he's a producer at the radio program Day 6, and he said, the CBC decided not to broadcast the images of the Prophet Muhammad out of respect for the beliefs and sensibilities of Muslim believers about images of Muhammad. Similarly, we wouldn't publish cartoons likely to dismay or outrage mainstream followers of other religions. But of course, as has been pointed out time and again, CBC was more than willing to show the images of Piss Christ. This is a so-called work of art that has a crucifix with Christ on it submerged in urine. It's still on their website today. It's still there. They also showed all the Charlie Hebdo cartoons that showed Jews with big hooked noses and all the nasty caricature features that people draw when they want to insult Jews. They also showed all the anti-Catholic images, including claiming that Pope Benedict left the papacy. He resigned so that he could go be with his gay lover. But don't worry, they don't want to insult other religions, and by other religions they mean they want to insult every religion except Islam. Now, the Piss Christ example, among others, were raised by many people that wrote into CBC upset with their double standard. But Jack Nagler, an executive with the state broadcaster, he doesn't see it that way. And in fact, he wrote back that they have standards. Are they applied with undeviating consistency over the years by hundreds of journalists working across the country and around the world? Actually, by and large, they are. Yet, despite our best efforts, there are occasional lapses, as Miss Enkin's reviews highlight. But with respect, I think the Piss Christ story is, I don't think the Piss Christ story is a particularly apposite example. Apposite. I had to look it up. It's fancy words. It means it's not really relevant here. No, showing images that outrage one religion that isn't Islam, that is actually completely relevant. To not showing images that would outrage Islam, CBC definitely has double standards. But they just keep saying, no, we don't. One of the other examples that Nagler pointed to was saying, look, we interviewed this very liberal Christian cleric, a female Anglican priest who said everything we were doing was fine, and that, let me read it from you. It says, the program interviewed the Reverend Jamie Hogan, who had argued in a recent article in The Guardian that in order to become interesting and relevant again, the church should embrace contemporary art, including art that criticized religion. Yes, that's CBC. They're willing to tell Christians that they've got to accept liberal interpretations, but they don't do that when it comes to Islam. They do admit that the ban on showing images of Muhammad, that is not universal. It's not universally accepted by Muslims. But they've decided that that's the interpretation they're going to take. When it comes to other religions, you've got to take the liberal interpretation. Now, this was all sent up the food chain to CBC's ombudsman, who ruled much like the executives that responded to the emails we received back in the access to information request, get with the program. Don't you understand? Why don't you become more liberal? Let me read to you from Miss Enkins. This is Esther Enkins ruling on this. She said, there is a messiness about all of this because it is based on judgment and assumption and cultural experience. There is no argument that the images used in this case were offensive. In the context they were used and the choices made, there was no violation of CBC journalistic policy. Undoubtedly, there are times when there are misjudgments, where the hurt outweighs any justification for the use of images, whether they are offensive on religious grounds or are profoundly disturbing in other ways. The Piss Christ example may well be one of those. I did not go back and examine it in great detail because it appeared on the Q website 5 years ago. It's still there. The images of the Pope leaving the papacy for his gay lover, that was posted while they would not show the images of Muhammad. But never mind. CBC's message to you is, if you're offended and you're not Muslim, too bad. You've got to liberalize your ways. But if you're Muslim, don't worry. We're on the side of the jihadists.
Thank you.